The situation in the Middle East has reached another critical point as Israel prepares for what officials are calling the final Gaza offensive, while at the same time reports emerge that Iranian forces and their regional networks have been severely weakened by sustained Israeli Defense Forces strikes. To fully understand this moment, it is important to break down both the operational and political dimensions of what is happening. On one level, the military buildup signals that Israel is no longer interested in a prolonged war of attrition inside Gaza, but rather in concluding the campaign with decisive moves designed to eliminate remaining Hamas strongholds, infrastructure, and leadership. On another level, the simultaneous targeting of Iranian assets reveals that this is not just about Gaza, but part of a wider regional confrontation where Israel is attempting to degrade Iran's ability to project power through proxies such as Hezbollah, Islamic Jihad, and Shiite militias. The preparations for the offensive involve multiple layers of planning and execution. Israel has reportedly mobilized additional brigades and armored divisions closer to the Gaza perimeter, creating staging areas that are being fortified with logistics hubs, drone command centers, and advanced artillery units. Modern technology is at the heart of this offensive plan. Real-time intelligence gathering from satellites, reconnaissance drones, and AI-assisted surveillance is allowing the IDF to pinpoint Hamas movement patterns, underground tunnel entrances, and arms depots with higher precision than in previous operations. Unlike earlier campaigns where artillery and airstrikes often created large collateral damage, Israeli planners are now placing heavy emphasis on precision-guided munitions, bunker-busting bombs, and tactical drones that can strike individual targets while minimizing civilian casualties. For civilians, the humanitarian situation remains dire. Over 1 million people have been displaced, and aid groups are warning of shortages in food, water, and medical supplies. Yet Israel argues that its offensive is designed to shorten the war and remove Hamas's capacity to wage future attacks, a strategy they believe will eventually reduce suffering in the long term. The international community remains deeply divided on this point. Western allies like the United States and parts of Europe have expressed support for Israel's right to self-defense, but continue to pressure the government to avoid a full-scale ground invasion that could cause massive civilian casualties. Meanwhile, countries sympathetic to Palestine, such as Turkey and Qatar, accuse Israel of preparing for occupation rather than liberation. The Iranian dimension complicates the picture even more. Over the past few weeks, Israel has expanded its campaign beyond Gaza to strike Iranian-linked assets across Syria, Iraq, and even in areas closer to Lebanon. Reports suggest that warehouses storing precision-guided missiles, drone factories, and weapons convoys destined for Hezbollah have been destroyed. Israeli officials claim that these strikes have crippled Iran's regional networks by eliminating key commanders and disrupting supply chains. In effect, the strikes serve a dual purpose. They protect Israel from a northern front opening up, while also sending a message to Tehran that any attempt to escalate the conflict through proxies will be met with overwhelming retaliation. Iran, on the other hand, denies the scale of the damage and continues to project an image of resilience. However, regional analysts note that the absence of major retaliatory strikes from Hezbollah or Iranian forces indicates that Tehran may indeed be struggling to respond effectively. The Iranian leadership also faces domestic challenges, with protests and economic strain creating additional pressure. In this context, Israel's strikes on Iranian forces do not only have a military impact, but also a psychological and political one, eroding Iran's image as a regional power capable of standing up to Israel. One of the unique features of this conflict cycle is the way Israel is merging its Gaza operation with broader regional strategy. In past conflicts, operations in Gaza were treated as largely isolated campaigns. This time, however, Israel appears determined to integrate its counter-Hamas offensive with a wider preemptive strike campaign against Iran and its allies. This integration demonstrates an evolution in Israel's military doctrine, where the battlefield is not confined to a single strip of land, but viewed as a network of interconnected threats that must be neutralized simultaneously. Another key aspect is the role of new military technology. The IDF has been deploying loitering munitions, sometimes called kamikaze drones, which can hover over a battlefield for extended periods and then strike with pinpoint accuracy once a target is identified. Combined with artificial intelligence that can sift through vast amounts of surveillance data, this allows the Israeli military to accelerate its kill chain from identification to execution, giving Hamas and other groups little time to adapt. Reports also suggest that the Iron Dome and David Sling defense systems have been upgraded to intercept not only rockets, but also drones and cruise missiles, ensuring that Israel's home front remains secure even as the offensive intensifies. Public opinion inside Israel is another dimension worth exploring. After months of rocket barrages, hostage situations, and civilian casualties, there is widespread support for a final offensive that would remove Hamas from power. Yet there is also apprehension about what comes next. If Hamas is eliminated or severely weakened, who governs Gaza? The Israeli leadership has not provided a clear roadmap, with some factions suggesting military administration, others proposing cooperation with international bodies, and still others pushing for a restored Palestinian Authority presence. The absence of clarity raises fears that Israel could win the military campaign but become bogged down in a prolonged occupation, repeating the mistakes of past conflicts. On the Palestinian side, the resolve remains strong despite the devastation. Hamas and allied groups present themselves as defenders of Palestinian rights against what they describe as occupation and aggression. Propaganda videos released online show militants continuing to operate from tunnels, launching surprise attacks, and boasting about their resilience. Yet experts note that the material losses inflicted by Israel are substantial, and sustaining the fight at this intensity may not be possible for much longer. This raises the prospect that Hamas could transition to guerrilla tactics, dispersing into smaller cells that carry out sporadic attacks rather than centralized campaigns. International diplomacy is racing to keep up with developments. Egypt, Qatar, and the United States are reportedly engaged in bacchanal negotiations to secure a ceasefire framework, or at least an agreement on humanitarian corridors. The difficulty lies in balancing Israel's demand for complete disarmament of Hamas with Hamas' insistence on lifting the blockade and ensuring Palestinian sovereignty. The Iranian element complicates these talks further, as many regional actors see the Gaza war as a proxy battlefield for the broader Israel-Iran rivalry. Another performance aspect of Israel's strategy is the deliberate psychological warfare aimed at both Hamas and Iran. Leaflets, text messages, and cyber operations are being deployed to spread confusion, encourage defections, and undermine morale, by showcasing its intelligence capabilities and highlighting the vulnerability of enemy networks. Israel seeks to project inevitability, the message that resistance is futile because the offensive will succeed no matter what. This approach is designed not only to weaken the enemy militarily, but also to erode their will to fight. From a geopolitical design standpoint, Israel's moves are calibrated to reshape the security architecture of the Middle East. By crippling Iranian forces and preparing for a decisive Gaza victory, Israel is positioning itself as the dominant regional actor capable of confronting not only Palestinian militias, but also state-backed threats. This posture is meant to reassure allies like the United States and Gulf states that Israel remains a reliable security anchor in the region, while also deterring adversaries from challenging its military supremacy. The unique selling point of this moment, if one can call it that, lies in the convergence of tactical, strategic, and technological innovations being deployed in real time. Never before has the IDF launched such a coordinated campaign that spans Gaza, Syria, Iraq, and Lebanon while integrating artificial intelligence, precision weapons, and advanced defense systems into a single operational framework. The ability to strike Iranian forces far beyond Israel's borders while simultaneously preparing for a decisive ground campaign in Gaza demonstrates both reach and resilience. For supporters, this underscores Israel's unparalleled military edge in the region. For critics, it highlights the dangers of an escalatory doctrine that could widen the conflict into a regional war. At the same time, the situation reveals the fragility of the regional order. Every strike on Iranian forces risks triggering retaliation from Hezbollah in Lebanon. Every push deeper into Gaza risks inflaming protests across the Arab world. And every civilian casualty risks eroding the international legitimacy Israel seeks to preserve. This balance between military effectiveness and political fallout is the central challenge Israel faces as it moves into the final stages of its Gaza operation. In summary, Israel's preparations for a final Gaza offensive combined with its crippling strikes on Iranian forces reflect a multifaceted strategy designed to conclude one battlefront, while shaping the broader regional war. It is a strategy that blends cutting-edge military technology with calculated geopolitical maneuvering, one that seeks to deliver both short-term security and long-term deterrence. Whether it succeeds in achieving those goals, or whether it triggers new waves of instability, will depend on the choices made in the days and weeks ahead.